Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to George W. Norris Legislative Chamber for the 13th day of the 107th Legislature First Session. Our chaplain for today is Senator Geist. Please rise.
Good morning. Let's pray together. Father, we're so thankful to be here this morning. You've brought us this far. We pray for your peace. We pray for your guidance. And we pray for a nice long weekend. Give us strength and vision and help us to do the things that honor you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Senator Geist. I call on Senator Lowe for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Senator Lowe. I call to order the 13th day of the 107th Legislature First Special Session. Senators, please record your presence. Roll call. Mr. Clerk, please record.
I have a quorum present, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any corrections for the journal?
Mr. President, on page 94, strike line 9. That's the only item.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any messages, reports, or announcements?
Mr. President, acknowledgement of agency reports received and available to members on the legislative website. Also, the lobby report is required by state law to be inserted in the journal. That's all that I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, before we're moving to final reading, I recognize Senators Pansing, Brooks, and Brewer for a special announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you remember last year, we passed legislation to establish Indigenous Peoples Day. And this coming Monday, we will, or a week from Monday, we'll be celebrating that. And the ceremony in the morning will start at 9:30 across in the Warner Chamber. The 4 tribes that we will be unveiling the flags for, the Ponca, the Santee Sioux, the Winnebago, and the Omaha, will have representatives there, I think, to include their tribal presidents. And we'd like to invite everyone to come over for that ceremony in the other chamber. And after that, I'll let Sarah Pansing Brooks fill you in on the following event.
Are you okay? Well, we're really excited about this day. It's going to be a wonderful day. This body had a ton to do with this day. Again, doing the 4 tribal flags from the tribes headquartered in Nebraska will be placed over in the Warner Chamber with a great celebration. Then afterward, Senator Brewer and I are hosting a coffee and rolls downstairs near the cafeteria. And then afterward, we'll walk over to near the Sesostris Temple. Is that right, Sesostris? I'm spacing that off. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's on Centennial Mall where the Susan LaFleche Picot statue will be placed. And it's going to be dedicated at that point. The plan is that Congressman Fortenberry will be there, the mayor will be there. So it's a big celebration. Tribes will be there doing their dances and a powwow exhibition. And after that, inside the temple, there is a lunch that's been sponsored. And the university is announcing a wonderful project. So I hope you come. For those of you who didn't go to the Standing Bear event, Scottish Rite Building, thank you very much. Scottish Rite Building. Thank you, Senator Lowe. And it's really going to be a wonderful occasion. For those of you who didn't go to the Standing Bear event in DC, it will be similar. There will be lots of similar things, and that event was really special. So there will be some beautiful T-shirts that have been bought by some people, and the tribes are all going to be participating. So we really hope you come, because this is a large part about what Nebraska has done to celebrate our First Peoples. So thank you. Hope you read this and come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senators. Members, we're now going to move to final reading. All senators, please be at your desks. Thank you, Senators. We now have 7 bills on final reading. Each bill, members, has an E clause on it. Each bill will require 33 votes. 33 votes. First bill, Mr. Clerk.
Engrossed Legislative Bill 3, introduced by the Redistricting Committee. It's Bill for Equity and Redistricting and amends Section 50, 11, 53, 54. It sets the district boundaries of the legislative districts by the adoption of maps by reference, provides for applicability of sections that harmonize provisions, declares an emergency. Section 51, 11, 53, by statute must be amended. The state of Nebraska, by 49 legislative districts, should be titled one member in the legislature, adopts for upon the 2020 census of redistricting. Members of boundaries legislative design is established by master and final labels like 3906, 06, 01, 01, 22, 2, A3, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, 8, 20, 21, 22, 23, 28, 29, 30, 30A, 31, 32, 30, 32A, 33, 33A, 34, 34A, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 38A, 39, 40, 41A, 40B, 41, 41A, 41B, 42, 42A, 43, 44, 44A, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49. The clerk shall transmit possession of the maps referred in the section of the Secretary of State on the effective date of this act. When questions of interpretation of legislative district boundaries rise to the maps referred to in subsection shall be in possession of the Secretary shall be indication. Each election commission county clerk should obtain copies of the maps referred to the Secretary of State shall also be available to use their website maps referred subject to the section. The changes made to this section, sections by the legislative bill in the election November 22, the term commences January 4, 2023. Section 3, original section 50, 1153, 1154, revised stats keeps up are repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect when passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 3E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted carried to? Record, please.
Voting aye. Sirs Aguilar, Albright, Archblood, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breesy, Clements, Day, Dorn, Friesen, Geis, Grigert, Holler, and Ben Hansen, Hilgers, Hickman, Hughes, Coulterman, Lathrop, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowe, McAllister, McDonald, Moorfeld, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Pansy, Brooks, Sanders, Lummis, Dinner, Vargas, Walls, Williams. Voting no, Senators John Kavanaugh, Michaela Kavanaugh, Erdman, Groney, Matt Hanson, Hunt, McKinney. Not voting, Senators Bostar, DeBoer, Wayne, Wishart, Flood. 37 ayes, 7 ayes, 4 present, not voting, 1 excused, not voting, Mr. President.
LB 3E passes. Proceeding to LB 1E.
Proposal Bill 1E is the Redistricting Redistricting Amendments Bill for Equity and Redistricting Amendment Section 32504 and 505, just have the original boundary records of Congress of the United States by adoption maps will reference harmonize Section 1. Based on the village by the United States Department of Census Bureau of the State of Nebraska, by dividing 3 districts, electoral representatives of Congress of the United States, each section shall be entitled to elect on members by the district examining established maps identified in Section Congress 21, 3902, 3901, 3902, 3903, filed with the clerk and recorded by reference part of this bill. One question is interpretation, district boundaries, as the maps within the sections possession secretary shows that everybody intended drawing the district boundaries. Each election commission in the county shall claim copies of the maps within the subject of the second election commission in the county clerk through the secretary of state. For purposes of section 32504, the legislature adopts the official proposition of maps from some of the redistricting title files shared by the United States Department of Commerce Bureau of Census. Section 3, section 32504, 505, revised stats in Nebraska are repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect when passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 1E pass? With the emergency clause attached, those in favor vote aye, those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted care to? Record, please.
Voting aye. Sirs Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bosselman, Brandt, Brewer, Breesky, Clements, Day, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Grager, Groney, Holleran, Ben Hanson, Hildreth, Hickelman, Hughes, Coulterman, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowell, McAllister, McDonald, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Panzine, Brooks, Sanders, Slama, Stinner, Williams. Voting no. Senators Bostar, Kavanaugh, DeBoer, Matt Hanson, Hunt, Lathrop, McKinney, Moorfeld, Vargas, Wayne. Not voting, Senators Walls, Wishart, and Flood. 35 ayes, 11 ayes, 2 present, not voting, 1 excused, not voting, Mr. President.
LB 1E passes. Proceeding to LB 6E.
Universal Bill 6, introduced by the Redistricting Committee, signed by its members. A bill for equity and redistricting, section 24-20102, 2104. Revised stats set the boundaries of the Supreme Court judiciary with adoption of maps by reference. Based on the 2020 census population by the United States Department of Commerce Bureau of Census, the state of Nebraska is divided by 6 Supreme Court judiciary. Each district shall be entitled 1 Supreme Court judge. The numbers, boundaries, districts, as maps Supreme 21, 39, 01, 01, 02, 03, 03A, 4, 5, and 6, filed with the clerk and incorporated by reference as part of the legislative bill. The clerk shall transfer possession of the maps referred to in section 2 of this section, Secretary of State on the effective date of this act. When questions, interpretation, of district boundaries arise, maps referred to the secretary shall serve as indicators of legislative drawing the district boundaries. Each election commission and county clerk shall obtain counties of the maps referred to in subsection elections. For purposes of this section, the legislature adopts the affected population figures of maps from 28 Illinois redistricting and reviews of surplus by the United States Department of Commerce Bureau of Census. Original sections 24-20101, 2404 revised sites are repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect when passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 6E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye, those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted care to? Record, please.
Voting aye. Sirs Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bostar, Bostelman, Brandt, Brewer, Breesky, Kavanaugh, Clements, Day, DeBoer, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Grager, Groney, Holler, and Ben Hanson, Hildreth, Hickelman, Hughes, Hunt, Coulterman, Lathrop, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowell, McAllister, McDonald, McKinney, Moorfeld, Moser, Merman, Powell, Pansy, Brooks, Saunders, Slaughter, Stinner, Vargas, Walls, Wayne, Williams, Wishart. Voting no, Sir Matt Hanson. Not voting, Sirs Wayne and Flood. 46 ayes, 1 nay, 1 present, not voting, 1 excused, not voting.
LB 6E passes with the emergency clause attached. Proceeding to LB 5E.
First Bill 5, introduced by Redistricting Committee, signed by its members. The bill for act on amendment section 75, 101, 102. Sets the boundaries of public service commissions, district by adoption of maps will reference, harmonizes, declares an emergency. Based on 20 census population, United States Department of Bureau of Public Service Commission, each member of the district has one member. Numbers, boundaries, districts, 3 SC 2139-001-1-1-2-3-4-5. File with the clerk and incorporate reference as part of this bill. Clerk of the legislature transfer possession of the maps referred to the Secretary of State and effective date. Request interpreted district boundaries, the maps referred to in subsection 2 of this section. The Secretary shall serve as the indication of legislative intent drawing the district boundaries. For purposes of section 75101, legislative adoption of official population figures of 79 census redistricting public law, Tiger filing 5 subserved by the United States Department of Commerce Bureau of Census. Original section 75-101.01, 101.02, revised status of Nebraska repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect and passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 5E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted? Record, please.
49, Sears Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bostar, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breesy, Clements, Day, DeBoer, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Greger, Groney, Holleran, Van Hansen, Hickelman, Hughes, Hunt, Coulterman, Lathrop, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowe, McColliston, McDonald, McKinney, Morfeld, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Panzenbrook, Sanders, Slama, Stinner, Vargas, Walls, Wayne, Williams, Wishart. Voting no, Sears Kavanaugh, Matt Hansen. Not voting, Senator Flood. 45 ayes, 3 nays, 1 excused, not voting, Mr. President.
LB 5E passes with the emergency clause attached. Proceeding to LB 8E.
And Growth Bill Bill 8, introduced by the Redistricting Committee, signed by its members. Bill not going to redistrict, amend section 85, 10301, and 10302. Sets the district boundaries of members of the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska by adoption maps by reference, harmonized provisions, declares an emergency. For purpose of section 85, 103, state and divide 8 district, each will be titled 1 region on the board. The members of the board of the district assigned as labels as 3903, 3903, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Filed with the clerk and transported as part of this bill. When question of interpretation, district boundaries of writing maps referred to the subject of the said position, shall serve as indication of legislative intent. Secretary of State shall have available for viewing in his website maps referred to as subsection of this section. For purposes of section, legislative adopts of official publication of census redistricting, public Tiger file, sharp files, survivor science, Department of Commerce, Bureau of the Census. Original section 85, 10301, 10302, reissue of vice status repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect and passed approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 8E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Record, please.
49, there's Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bostar, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breesy, John Kavanaugh, Clements, Day, DeBoer, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Greger, Groney, Holleran, Ben Hansen, Hildreth, Hickelman, Hughes, Hunt, Coulterman, Lathrop, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowe, McColliston, McDonald, McKinney, Morfeld, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Panzenbrook, Saunders, Slama, Stinner, Vargas, Walls, Wayne, Williams, Wishart. Voting no, Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, Matt Hansen. Not voting, Senator Flood. 46 ayes, 2 nays, 1 excused and not voting.
LB 8E passes with the emergency clause attached. LB 7E.
And Gross Legislative Bill 7, offered by the Redistricting Committee. It's bill for enactment and redistricting and amend section 79, 311 and 312, reissued by statute, he sets the district boundaries as a member of the State Board of Education by adoption of maps by reference. For purposes of section 79, 310, state dividing 8 districts, each will be entitled one member of the board. The members of the board, the trustees, have established and the sections maps 39003, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, filed with the clerk and incorporated by reference. The clerk of the legislature shall transfer possession of the maps for a section of the Secretary of State and effective date. When questions of interpretation, district boundaries arise, maps referred to in subsections as expressed by the Secretary of State shall serve as an indication of legislative intent. Each election commissioner and county clerk shall obtain copies of the maps referred to in subsections. Second, election commissioner's office, Secretary of State shall also have available viewing his or her website. The website is right in subsection 2. For purposes of section 79-311, the legislature adopts official population figures and maps, public law, Tiger Line files, shape files, public law, United States Department of Commerce, Bureau of Census. Section 3, Resolution 79-311, 312, utilized statute of Nebraska are repealed. Section 4, since an emergency exists, this act takes effect and passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 7E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Record, please.
Voting aye. Senators Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bostar, Bostelman, Brandt, Brewer, Breesy, Clements, Day, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Gregor, Groney, Holler, and Ben Hanson, Hilders, Hickelman, Hughes, Colterman, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowe, McAllister, McDonald, McKinney, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Pansy, Brooks, Sanders, Slamas, Stenner, Vargas, Walls, Wayne, Williams, Wishart. Voting no, Senators Kavanaugh, DeBoer, Matt Hanson, Hunt, Lathrop, Moorfield, not voting, Senator Flood. 41A, 7 A's, 1 excused, not voting, Mr. President.
LB 7E passes with the emergency clause attached. Pause for just a moment, members. Before moving to the final bill, while the legislature is in session and capable of transacting business, I propose to sign or hereby sign the following 6 legislative bills: LB 3E, 1E, 6E, 5E, 8E, and 7E. Final bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, Legislative Bill 14, I have a motion on the desk. Senator Kavanaugh would move to return the bill for specific amendment, AM 44.
Senator Mikhail Kavanaugh, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. How much time do I have to open?
10 minutes.
Okay, and then 2 times to speak?
Correct.
Thank you. Colleagues, this bill is the reimbursement for the special session, and I do not intend to take this to a vote. So do my best to be collegial in spite of the circumstances. Though I will be voting against it because I don't think that this body is worthy of receiving those funds, but I also believe that the staff is. So I've been doing a little bit of a look back, a historical look back. It's not very far look back because it's only 2 years. But I've been going through the 2019 process of LB 709 from the 106th Congress Legislature. LB 709 is the bill that I introduced my freshman year to create a mother's room. LB 709 was co-sponsored by every single female senator in the 106th legislature. Every woman in this body co-sponsored that bill. It is loud in here right now, so I guess I will try to speak louder. Can I have a gavel?
Members, please come to order.
Thank you. March 2019, there was a hearing in front of the government committee about my bill, LB 709. There were proponents. There was a staff member that came and testified, took a lunch break to come and testify about this. That same staff member, who is no longer a staff member, sent a letter along with other former employees this morning to the entire legislature. Dear Speaker Hilgers and Chair Hughes, as women who have conducted work in the Nebraska State Capitol building while pregnant and/or nursing and expressing milk, colleagues, I am reading about staff that have worked in this building. Excuse me. I am reading about staff who have worked in this building as working mothers. You could do the decency to at least be quiet. You don't have to listen to me, but you can be quiet. Thank you. As women who have conducted work in the Nebraska State Capitol building while pregnant and/or nursing and expressing milk, we respectfully request reconsideration of the decision to remove access to the mother's room in the Nebraska State Capitol. We understand the practical nature of assessing needs and resources during the renovation. However, the consequences of this decision to temporarily restrict access to the privately funded mother's room for 2 years is immeasurable. The days of pumping breast milk in closets and next to bathroom stalls are over. A mother's room in the Capitol means that women will no longer be dependent on their boss's schedule or be forced to coordinate an underground network of pumping time in the most generous offices. We are thankful for the addition of the pod in the copy room, but it is meant for visitors to the Capitol, not mothers who need it several times a day for a year or more. This letter is written for the woman who is pregnant and has yet to disclose. This letter is for the woman who is trying to conceive and weighing whether this workplace is supportive of her future. This letter is written for the women who have worked in the building for decades and celebrated the installment of the mother's room. This letter is written for the women and young Nebraskans who are considering the workplace culture they want to add their talents to in the years to come. This letter was not circulated among staff of the legislature or employees in other agencies and branches working in the state capitol. Why? Because this was a purposeful decision reflective of the reality in which many women find themselves, weighing their needs against the security and perceptions of their careers. In short, they should not have to be asked. We respectfully request leadership reinstate access to the mother's room immediately. Please prioritize this for not only the legal reasons, but to maintain the dignity we should give all staff who choose to work in our Capitol. And it is signed by several former staff members who have worked for several people in this chamber right now. And it is just unfathomable to me that we are still having this, that I am still having this conversation. I realize that not many of you are participating in the conversation, but it is unfathomable to me that this is still happening. In rereading the transcripts from the hearing and rereading the transcripts from the exec board meetings where they voted, Senator Hughes voted for the mother's room in 2104, the room that it is. That was a vote that was taken, recorded, acknowledgement of the funds that we were receiving from a foundation. We should be held accountable. We get angry when the administration doesn't take into account our laws that we pass, when they flounce their nose at it. We get angry about that because it's our job. But where's the accountability for ourselves, colleagues? Where is the outrage that our executive board of the 106th legislature voted for this, and the same people who voted for it took it away unceremoniously, refused to put it back, refused to engage in this? Where is your outrage? If this was something that mattered to you, you would be outraged and you would want me by your side. If something happened that you worked so hard to get to fruition for the people of Nebraska and another senator just ignored it, you would be outraged and I would stand by you. In rereading the hearing, and this is for the senators that this is your first year back. In rereading the testimony and the conversation from the hearing, it brought me joy and also made me sad because I saw the potential for the relationships I could have in this body. The way that both Democrats and Republicans in that committee engaged with me and worked with me, the fact that Speaker Hildreth and I made this happen together, the prospect of what we could accomplish if we could treat one another with respect. And for me personally, as a state senator in this body, it has been a downward spiral ever since. Last session was horrendous for me. But I'm not going to stop showing up. I'm not going to stop showing up for you all. I'm not going to stop showing up for my constituents. I'm not going to stop showing up for the state of Nebraska. But it is sad. All I wanted to do was give the women of this state a place to do what they needed to do to take care of their families. And the consequences are so vast that I don't think the men in this body can even begin to grasp. I heard a story of a woman whose child died almost immediately after birth. And part of her grieving process was that she continued to pump and donate the milk to the hospital, because a lot of people are able to do that. And you sign a form whether or not you would accept donated milk at the hospital. And this woman, that was her grieving process. She worked in this building. God bless her. I don't know what she would do. There are women who lose pregnancies every single day, and they need a private place to grieve, to step away from their desk. You may never even know that they went through that, and you are depriving them of that. This room was so much more than just a room. It's wrong on every level, and you don't even begin to understand how wrong it is. Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor.
Thanks, Senator Kavanaugh. 4 senators in the queue. Senator McKinney, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. I support LB 14E, and Senator Michaela Kavanaugh is going to pull her motion. And I do want to tell you on the mic and on the record that I stand with you and I support the reinstatement of the mother's room in the Capitol. But I wanted to give a weekly update on the prison situation that we got from the IG. The other day, this is the email. Well, yesterday we got this. Yesterday, 3 men apparently attempted suicide at NTS facilities. According to reports from those facilities, one cut his arm at the Diagnostics and Evaluation Center. Another tried to choke himself with a t-shirt at the Nebraska State Penitentiary. The third tied a shirt to a vent at the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution and tried to hang himself. To have this many suicide attempts, or even more than one, in a single day is rare. Fortunately, staff were in the area each time and were able to intervene. All three of these facilities are understaffing emergencies. We also wanted to let you know about a call we received from an inmate in the protective custody unit at the Lincoln Correctional Center yesterday. There was a fight on that unit between two cellmates, friends of the caller, who had lived together for more than a year with no problems. This is backed up by reports from staff. The inmate who called suggested that locking men down in their cells together for 3 full days is raising tensions in the facility. It is worth noting that the corporal who discovered this fight just happened to be on the unit at the time. Due to short staffing at LCC on Monday night, there were actually no one assigned to that unit, meaning the corporal had to leave a different unit unattended to do rounds on the protective custody unit. Lastly, our office and the ombudsman's office continue to hear complaints from inmates about their medications, insulin being handed out at the wrong times or not at all at LCC and DEC. We have relayed these concerns to NDCS administration, but the complaints have continued. Our understanding is this is also related to staffing levels. Also received some more information from the ombudsman's office, which they consider a point of interest for the correctional system: inmate out of cell time. Over the last several years, due to critical staffing and overcrowding issues, more and more has been taken from the inmate population. Recently, in the Lincoln Correctional Center and in DEC, modified its operations, a lockdown model, to only allow its inmate population out their cell Monday through Thursday. The population is locked down in their cells the rest of the week, Friday through Sunday. Unfortunately, the feedback from this latest action by the department has frustrated and angered the inmate population. We have and continue to express our grave concerns to the department on the long-term impacts of such plan. There's also concerns with how the plans deal with those inmates diagnosed with serious mental illness, TBI, or DD. We continue to have concerns with residual effects that a lockdown will have on this population. Other concerns we have with the lockdown model and the related impact will have on the inmate population includes issues as expressed, and I'll get back on the mic after my time and continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator McKinney. Senator Matt Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. I too stand with Senator Michaela Cavanaugh in her efforts to get the mother's room restored. Unfortunately, with everything I've been working on this week, I'm remiss that I haven't been able to spoken on it until now. One of the staffers that was referenced testifying and then signing on to that letter that we all received was a former staff member of mine. And the things she shared publicly has largely been focused on the lack of his mother's room and that informal network of working moms in this building. I do want to rise and say this is a bigger institutional problem from that. Our maternal leave policies, our family leave policies, all sorts of things are simply out of date and inadequate. And I could just say, as an employer who's trying to be generous and who's trying to balance, a quality employee who I want to stay working for me, it's so heartbreaking and so difficult to say, hey, I'm going to try and get permission from the exec board to give you unpaid leave. And that's the step we leave a lot of staff in our building. That's the place we leave senators who want to support their staff in this building. It's an embarrassment to this institution that we took so long to get a mother's room. It's an embarrassment that we've now lost it. And I really sincerely hope that we resolve this as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Matt Hansen. Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. Good morning, Nebraskans. I'm grateful to senators like Matt Hansen and Senator McKinney who don't maybe have such a personal stake in this kind of issue because they're not somebody who would ever use a lactation room. But it's really men who have always been needed historically to move these things along. And I'm thankful for Senator Michaela Cavanaugh for making space today and many, many other times throughout the special session for redistricting to talk about this important issue, even though it's not directly related to redistricting. It is, because it's the same systemic problem that we keep seeing in this building and in this legislature of we're not listening to the people who are affected by the policies we make. When constituents tell us that they don't like LB1, they don't like LB3, they don't like how these maps are drawn, and then we come in here, we introduce amendment after amendment in late in the night, early in the morning. None of us have seen it before we get to vote on it. It comes to our desk. You know, we're standing at ease for hours to wait for the copier to make copies of the amendment for us so we can read it. Of course, the public hasn't seen it. The public tells us constantly that they don't like this process. Just as the mothers who are staffers in this building and former staff in this building are telling us that we have a problem with the institutional processes in this building. And people in this body say they care. As Senator Cavanaugh said, every single woman in the 106th legislature signed on to her bill to create a mother's room in the Capitol. But if you say you care, that costs you nothing. It costs $0.00 to sign on to a bill and say, oh yeah, we got to help the moms. When push comes to shove and you have to actually do something about it, you're not there. And that's so weak. And that's so embarrassing for you. And that's such a shame for the people that you represent. That's the best you can do for them. We can do way better. And of course, it took a mother coming into this legislature, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, to get anything done on this. Senator Matt Hansen is right. It's an embarrassment to this institution that it took us so long to get a mother's room, and it's an embarrassment to the institution that now we no longer have one. Without any fanfare, without any ceremony, without any email, without any public notification, the lactation room was removed to create an office for a man. Of course, quickly, the same Senator Michaela Cavanaugh springs into action to solve it. She doesn't just complain, although we got time to do both. We can solve it and we can complain. But she finds a solution. That day, she packs up all her stuff and moves out of her own office. A state senator in Nebraska giving up her office as a senator so that a man in the building can use it, and the women of Nebraska and the mothers of Nebraska can have the lactation room back that they should have had decades ago, honestly. A mother identifies the problem, a mother finds a solution, the solution is implemented, we have a lactation room, the lactation room is taken away by a man, Senator Hughes, to create an office for a man. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, a woman, finds a solution, leaves her office to give something back to the women of Nebraska. And all we have to do is say, okay, thanks, that was really helpful. I guess this will work for now and we'll find a solution longer term soon. Thanks, Michaela. Nobody said that.
1 minute.
In fact, it's basically been crickets. The only men we've seen get on the microphone, John Kavanaugh, Senator McKinney, Senator Hansen. I see a couple men in the queue here. All of them from the same political party, I'll note. I don't see anybody from, the party of life standing up to talk about how we need this lactation room for women who've brought life into this world. And that's a shame to you and an embarrassment to you. Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Senator Vargas.
Thank you very much. So I've not actually weighed in here, and I just wanted to add a little bit. I do want to thank Senator Michaela Cavanaugh for her efforts here. I have, not that people know this, but I've been off the mic not only past year, commended her for her efforts here. And the reason why I want to stand up is largely to say that I support your efforts. I support you and what you're trying to do. I'm obviously not speaking from somebody that has had firsthand experience of this, nor should we ever. I'm speaking as somebody on the executive board that has supported the efforts for the Mother's Room in the past, voting to support creating it and setting aside But also, more importantly, I'm standing up here because I want to acknowledge that it is somewhat personal for me. One of my own former staffers signed on to this letter, who I'm very, very proud of. We have worked, if you don't realize, one, this is public service what we're doing, but our staffers are doing public service too. They are getting paid very, very little. And as to what all the senators have been sharing, Senator Kavanaugh and Senator Hunt and Senator Hansen, the resources and support mechanisms they have pale in comparison to other jobs, which is even more so for the women that are staffers in the legislature. I know it may seem insignificant to some. I've had some of these conversations with people, but it is an extreme slight when there are already so many lack of resources and support mechanisms provided to working mothers. And I wanted to stand up and say that out loud, because if you haven't realized that by now, then you're not listening to Senator Kavanaugh. It should be made abundantly clear that this isn't about a nice to have. It isn't about something that is making it just easier. It's fundamentally whether or not we tell staffers, we value you, we value the work that you do, we value you as a working mother, we also value your kids, and we want to make it easier. I'm also saying that as a husband of my wife has had similar experiences as a working mother, having to navigate being able to pump, to store, to do it in her own privacy around a working schedule as a young attorney. And I've seen that same. That's actually why I'm lucky to have my own staffers that have had kids while my time in the legislature. My staff, my office has been one of the places where people have pumped over the last several years. It shouldn't have to have been a structure that makes people jump through hoops and schedule things secretly to make it work. Luckily, we have a mother's room, or had a mother's room. I just hope people understand, you know how hard it is for a staffer, period, in the legislature, and how even more difficult it is for the women that are staffers, that are working mothers, and what they have to navigate, and how difficult it is to even voice their opinions, let alone on this letter, and that we should be listening. I do applaud Senator Kavanaugh for bringing these bills. Not just that, she brought the paid family leave bill.
1 minute.
I hope we can agree that there's something that we should do. I do applaud. I've had conversations with some executive board members myself that agree, and I hope we get to a conclusion here very, very soon. But it is absolutely, the word's not tragic, it is just unacceptable that it had to take this to get light to address this. And from one executive board member, I'm sorry it took this long. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vargas. Senator McKinney.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. I'll continue my conversation on the prisons, but I do want to point out that currently the department is sort of manipulating the law around restrictive housing by keeping individuals in their cells Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because it's based on time during the week and not time during the day. Also got from the ombudsman that secretaries that are unqualified are being pulled off of their posts to supervise those that are incarcerated, which is another problem. And then there's programming and library issues. One, limited access to programming because of understaffing. Two, limited access to law library because of understaffing, which is a whole problem in itself. Three, reduction in case management services. Four, due process issues that impact timely hearings. And to kind of give some context on that, because of the understaffing, those incarcerated are not getting their legal situations taken care of in a timely manner, which could and potentially result in them being in the Department of Corrections for longer times, or their cases not being heard, which is an issue. And then on the diminished quality of life issues, one, limited showers not planned Friday through Sunday. I just heard today that just as of yesterday or today, individuals in Tecumseh are not, I can't even say all of them, they're finally been allowed to get some showers. Two, reduce family visit opportunities. Three, outside consultant issues for medical, dental, and mental health services. Four, the pairing of inmates is a problem, especially when there is limited staff to provide supervision. This can lead to an increase in complaints with the Prison Elimination Rate Acts, physical assaults such as fights, suicide attempts, an increase in making hooch and smoking K2 inside the cells, assaults on custody staff members. Five, we are seeing an increase in COVID cases throughout the system. I just hope as we end this special session and go into January, everybody in this body starts to pay attention to our prison overcrowding issue, our staffing issues, and criminal justice as a whole, because it's a problem for our state. And it's going to be on the table in January. And I hope, everyone takes some time after we get finished here and really research what is going on and what needs to be done to fix this problem. And one solution that is on the table that I don't believe in, will never vote for, is building another prison. It makes no sense. We won't be able to staff it. We have some beds that'll probably come online here in Lincoln, about 300 plus. And during the hearing a couple weeks ago, the staff members said that even if once it opens, it probably won't even be utilized because it won't be able to be staffed. I think we should be investing in people and communities, community actions, halfway houses, transitional homes, make sure when individuals get out, they have they got jobs, transportation, and things like that. It shouldn't be investing $500 million into a prison that we can't staff, that will eventually be overcrowded. It just makes no
1 minute.
logical sense. So I would hope that everyone begins to pay attention to the prison crisis in this state, because it's an issue that it shouldn't only be a concern to me, but it should be of concern to the whole body. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McKinney. Senator John Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. Obviously, I rise in support of Senator McKinney's comments and in support of Senator Michaela Kavanaugh's comments. And I read that letter that she referenced from the former employees, staffers who work here, and I applaud the courage it takes to stand up and to attach your name to something that obviously I agree with, but I think that some people around here don't want to hear. And so I support those statements. I encourage everyone here to take the opportunity to read that letter. They make some very good, succinct points about the reasons we need this space for women. And I don't know if I can add more to that, but I'm humbled by the courage it takes for people to stand up and bring these issues to the attention. And I appreciate Senator McKinney getting up and bringing to light the emails from the Inspector General. After he brought that up last week, I asked to get on that email because I wasn't receiving it. And so I received that email this week, and I actually reached out to Senator McKinney after I read that email yesterday, and I asked if this was a normal report or if it was a particularly bad one. And I reached out to the Inspector General with the same question. And what I heard was that it was bad in the sense that having 3 suicide attempts in 1 week is particularly bad. But other than that, it was a pretty normal report. So I would encourage everyone to seek out that email as well so you can stay abreast of what is going on. This is an important issue, as Senator McKinney points out. I have been thinking about all of the issues that have been going around here. We've been talking about redistricting. You can all see how I voted on the bills. I voted for some and voted against others. And I was thinking about this, particularly last night. Senator Hunt and I actually went to the airport and welcomed a family of 8 refugees from Afghanistan who came to Nebraska to resettle after the 20-year war that the United States engaged in Afghanistan. And I was thinking about that in the context of what we're talking about here. And I've heard from a lot of my constituents in particular who are not happy with where we have settled on these maps. And I was thinking about their comments of feeling powerless when 50, 100 people came and testified against some of these maps. And then we took those up and contested the maps, and people commented, and we asked people to give us their input. And we ultimately, a lot of people didn't feel heard. And I'm here to tell you that you were heard, and that many people, your concerns were factored in as we discussed the maps, and ultimately where we settled, and the maps that were adopted were a deviation from the original maps. They did consider input from people. Obviously, I voted against the legislative maps and the congressional map because I was not satisfied with where we ended, but enough people were that that's the maps we have. But I don't want people to think that your contribution is not welcome, was not considered, is not valuable. So continue to voice your concerns. And that is similar to Senator McKinney here raising these issues, bringing them to the fore so we know what we need to consider. It's the same with Senator Michaela Cavanaugh raising this issue, getting the room, fighting to keep the room, fighting to bring it back. These are things, it is important. Input is important. And the reason I mention this in context of those Afghans is because we went to war specifically about the imposition of one group's will upon another because they had the power to do it. And ultimately, we lost that war because power is not the only thing that defines whether or not you can impose your will. And so we have a group here, a body of 49 people, and the power dynamic is such that one group can impose their will upon the state of Nebraska and upon all of us here if they so choose. And power is not strength, and it is not the final. So keep speaking up, keep expressing your opinions, and we will continue to consider them, and they will be factored in. So to all of you here who have the power, just remember that is not strength. And our objective here is justice.
That's time.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Senator John Kavanaugh. Senator Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I figured I would jump in this morning because why not? I did want to mention the redistricting process. As Senator Kavanaugh mentioned, there's a lot of people outside this body, I think, that are disappointed in how some of the maps turned out, and I think that's valid. I have been a yes vote on all of these maps all the way through the process, and I was today. And I don't discount the feelings of people being upset about how some of these maps turned out. I know there's people in the body and outside the body that are disappointed. But I also, being a part of the process for the first time, I saw how incredibly difficult this process is. And on top of that, we had to get this process done in 2 weeks, which is something I'm not sure, I could be wrong, I'm not sure has ever happened before. And I respected that process. I saw the sacrifices that were made on both sides of the issue. And because I respected that process and the sacrifices that were made, I ended up being a yes on these maps, even if I was disappointed in how some of them turned out. So there's my explanation for where I'm at today. This was a really tough process. I think that both sides of the issue came to the table in good faith and made decisions that they were both equally happy and unhappy about. And I think that this body did a fantastic job of getting that done in a very short amount of time. I also wanted to get on the mic to mention the issue with the mother's room. The very first day that this was brought up by Senator Kavanaugh, all of us kind of looked at each other and were immediately upset and then pushed our buttons to get into the queue to talk about it. And we were asked to turn off our lights that day so we could start working on maps. So I did, but I did want to talk about it today. As a mother of two, I've nursed two babies for over a year apiece. And I remember nursing my first child at 28 years old. And I grew up with a lot of shame in my body, a lot of modesty in my family. And I remember the days of essentially not even leaving my house because I was afraid to go out in public and nurse a baby. I wasn't comfortable sitting in a restaurant, even with a cover, nursing a baby. And that's no one else's fault, but the thing is that there's a lot of emotional issues that surround nursing children that people who never have to do it will ever understand. And additionally, when we talk about issues related to reproduction or childbearing and child rearing, those are not just issues about reproduction and child rearing. Those are issues of economics, right? I've been a working mother. I've worked full-time and had a baby. I've worked part-time and had a baby. I've been a full-time student and had a baby. I cannot explain to you how incredibly difficult it is sometimes to get even the most basic amount of work done, to even get to work on some days when you're pregnant or you have a baby. Some women can't. They're in a bed. They can't get out of bed. There's so many issues surrounding reproduction and child rearing that don't just center on reproduction. It's about a woman's ability to go to work and make her own money and support her family the way she needs to, because we know not everybody's family looks like a husband going to work and the wife staying at home. And so I think a lot of times the freedom that certain people have when they never have to worry about getting pregnant or nursing a baby is often taken for granted. I remember the days of being at home with a baby and having my partner leave the house and being so envious of them because they could go to work and they could talk to adults and they could eat lunch on their own. They didn't have to feel like they were trapped by the process. And nursing for me was both equal parts wonderful and amazing, but really, really difficult. And I think that that's something that needs to be respected. And I support Senator Kavanaugh in getting the mother's room reinstated ASAP. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Day. Senator Blood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, friends all, I do stand against Senator Kavanaugh's amendment, but I do stand in full support of her cause and in support of LB 14E. With that said, there's two things I want to say on the mic today, friends all. The first thing is I want to thank the Nebraska State Patrol. Most of you are not aware that over the last few months, both my family and I were threatened consistently, multiple times. And for me, I'm not worried, but for my family, I was worried because I know about you guys, but nobody messes with my family. And just because I'm silent does not mean that I am not strong and not a kick-ass woman, because I am. But with that said, I just want to say thank you to the Nebraska State Patrol, because we now know who's doing that. And that's just a reminder for all you people that think that you're hiding behind social media and can't be found. We found you. Now let's go on to Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, my friend with the biggest heart ever. A lot of people want to tune you out because you speak truth to power, and I'm not one of those people. What I have learned at the age of 60 as a public servant is that silence and voicelessness are tools of the patriarchy. Never forget that. Having a voice and being heard are two different things. When we put our own well-being in the hands of others, this is what happens. We open ourselves up to disappointment. So I want you to know that today I stand in support of Senator Kavanaugh's efforts. I stand in support of women. I stand in support of providing nutrition, love, and bonding to the future Nebraskans that will benefit from this room. I'm disheartened when I hear that we only have one pregnant person, or we're not aware of who is nursing and who isn't nursing, but we would likely know because I can't hear because there's so much noise in here. Mr. President, can you use your gavel, please?
Members,
Thank
please
you.
come to order.
I think if we showed more respect, we could get through this faster, because I know that that's the goal. I think it's really important that we don't sit here and try and problem solve about why this room should or should not be used. It's just common human decency to provide these types of amenities to the women in this building, period. And the one thing I've learned from HR and our staff, I mean, I like to go to our staff, right? The thing that's really lacking in this body and way that the legislature is run in Nebraska is that we are so far behind than we are with the real world, right? We're far behind the real world. When a staff person uses a state computer and harasses another senator on social media, we don't do anything to that staff person. But if you did that in a business, you would lose your job. You'd lose your job. If that staff person continues to harass the senator outside of business hours, they'd lose their job in the public sector as well, because that's not freedom of speech, that's harassment. When it comes to nursing mothers, if you had a female workforce and you could not provide a safe place for that woman to breastfeed her child to pump, you would be taken to court and there would be a lawsuit. We always hear from the executive branch that we need to run government like a business. Well, this is one place where we really crapped out. If we want to run the legislature, the Capitol, like a business, let's look at what year this is. I believe it's 2021, and get with the program, and let's start addressing all of these issues, not just that one issue, the way we would if we really were a business. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Blood. Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. If we take this conversation to an hour, we'll have to take it to cloture. And so I won't take all my times that I would be able to speak, because I'd like this to go to a vote before it goes to cloture. Everything that Senator Jen Day said, I was just sitting in my chair in awe of these points about how child rearing and reproduction and motherhood and parenting and everything that goes along with that, it's not just about family values. It's not just about, how we think of women and how we think of families. It's economic, and that's exactly right. And the more resources that we take away from mothers who are here in the building, whether they're here because they work here, or because they're here because they're visiting. I know that all of us have gone up and down the elevator or walked into the cafeteria or whatever, and we've seen people visiting the Capitol from all over the country, sometimes all over the world. And we always hear from people who visit our state capitol in Nebraska that it's one of the most beautiful state capitals they've ever seen, that it's one of the most beautiful buildings they've ever been in. And we should be so proud of this building, while we should be so ashamed that we have not adapted this building to serve the families of 2021. Or of 1990, or of 1960 for that matter. Women have always needed to feed their children, and there is no reason that we shouldn't give them that opportunity today. After Senator Kavanaugh brought this up last week, it was like a bomb dropping, and we all like, oh my God, they did what to the mother's room? I had no idea that this happened, because it was so unceremonious, as she said, and there was no way for people to even know it if she hadn't said something. I know that it was brought up in the executive board, that members of the executive committee were speaking about what to do about this problem. And I don't think that members of the executive board understand what a problem this is going to be for them and for us and for the building. Women and parents and families are very activated around this issue. I get letters every day in my official email, and I also have numerous comments on social media and messages and people talking to me in my store, in my district. They come in, when I'm working, and they say, "Thank you for standing up for the mother's room," or "Is it really true that they got rid of it?" And you guys, people are listening. People know that that's going on here. Another elected official in Nebraska who I'm friends with contacted the executive board about the mother's room by calling the office, and they were treated so rudely by the person who answered the phone, saying, I don't know if sarcastic tone, like, I don't know if you're aware that there's construction going on and we have to move a lot of senators around. Well, that's not an excuse, because we have space. We have space for the person who took the mother's room. So that's not an answer. And there aren't even any staffers who are pregnant right now, which, B, why are you the fertility police? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And C, it's not just for staff, it's for the public. It's for all those people that we run into in the elevator and in the cafeteria and throughout the Capitol who are visiting. And we want to make this a welcoming place for them, just as we want to make our state a welcoming place for them. This is the people's house. We pass policies in here all the time that help the people of Nebraska and its visitors, or hurt the people of Nebraska and its visitors. And it's no different from the policies that we have internally in this building and in this institution. We have this informal network of women, as exists in every workplace, that says, there's no lactation room, here's somewhere you can go. Come into my office, whatever it is. And women have to do this word of mouth thing to figure this out and find these places. And if you're a visitor, you can't tap into that network. And that's existed here forever. That exists in every workplace. But it's really unfair to women to have to go through that. Once again, from a specific group of folks in this body, the far-right conservative people, Ricketts crickets, we hear crickets. And it's not just that they're not on the mic, they're in their seats. They're not going over to Senator Hughes. They're not going over to Speaker Hilgers. They're not saying, yeah, we all think that Michaela Kavanaugh's wild and she's got some dumb ideas, which I know you all think about her, but maybe she has a point here. Maybe we should figure out what to do about the mother's room. None of you are walking around advocating for her. If a conservative woman had brought this up, we would be championing her as the goddess of life, helping everybody get by and get through the day. Wow, so nice of her to think of families.
That's time,
but because
Senator.
Senator Kavanaugh's doing it, you're
Senator.
not giving her the time of day. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Senator McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I know we are in a bit of a time crunch, so I'll be brief. I just need to rise in support of the mother's room. I've supported that idea on the executive committee, and I just need to go on the record today indicating that. Number two, criminal justice reform. All three branches of government are complicit in the terrible criminal justice situation that we have here in Nebraska. And I look forward to working with the Judiciary Committee and the other two branches of government and resolving that next year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator McAllister. Senator Bostar.
Thank you, Mr. Senate Governor. And I know we have maybe just a minute left, so I'll be very brief. I just want to stand up and say that before we adjourn sine die, that I really appreciate the efforts of Senator Michaela Kavanaugh and Senator Terrell McKinney for bringing to light issues that are important to the body. And I stand with them in those efforts. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Bostar. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. Colleagues, thank you for your words of solidarity. I do. Senator McKinney has been bringing up, not only today, but during this entire thing, very important issues regarding our prison system. And I'm just going to tie that into moms once more. My freshman year, I think one of the first bills I passed was the Healthy Pregnancies for Incarcerated Women's Act. And it's a piece of legislation that is really near and dear to my heart. And it just, I've tried to expound on it to create more opportunities for women who are incarcerated to have time with their children, their young children. And when the state of Minnesota passed a bill to that end, so many people sent it to me and I said, I have a bill for that. It's in committee. I feel like if nothing else, you can say I'm consistent. I care about women and I care about children. And I'm here to stand up for them and to give them a voice. I've been a working mom, and as outspoken as I am on this microphone every single day, when it came to being a working mom, for the first time, I was not an advocate for myself. I, just like so many other women, felt a lot of shame, felt a lot of disappointment in myself, thought that I just needed to work harder, be tougher. And it was a wonderful time in my life and a terrible time in my life. And to have a workplace, and I did have, my workplace at the time was very kind, but to have a workplace that is proactive in showing you that they care about you as a working mom means so much. So much. Like I said, like others have said, there are so many uses for women, for these rooms, for these spaces. You don't know what your employees or your colleagues are going through every single day. These are the hidden scars and the hidden trauma that we as women keep from you because, well, first of all, I don't think you can handle it, but also because it's none of your business and we shouldn't have to share it with you. But you know the reality. You know that women have C-sections and have to have a longer recovery as a result, and you can't carry over a certain weight when you have a C-section for a while. But if you have to return to work and you're pumping, you have to haul around a bag back and forth that has a battery. Or you could just keep it in a secure space like a mother's room. Like I said, I mean, if I had all the time in the world, I could talk about all the different things that this does. It is such an important and essential part of human development. And I'm just so disappointed that more individuals that talk about the sanctity of life and children don't think this is worth standing up for.
1 minute.
It is so disappointing. It is the simplest thing. It never should have happened, but it did, and we can fix it. It's the simplest thing. But not enough of you seem to think that it is worthy of that. I am a woman of my word. I will withdraw my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. The motion is withdrawn. Members, please return to your desk for on final reading. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
Gross Level Bill 14, introduced by Senator Hughes, a bill for not going to appropriate funds for expenses incurred during the 107th legislature first special session of 2021. Use by appropriate $103,000 general fund FY 21 to the Legislative Council Program 122 for expenses incurred during the 107th legislature first special session. Use by appropriate 26,082 general fund FY 120 to the Legislative Council Program 123 for expenses incurred during the 107th legislature first special session. Total expenditure improvement salaries, but unpaid services 96,14330. Here's by appropriate 11150 in general fund FY 20 program 127 expenses incurred during 107 first special session 2021. Since an emergency exists, this act takes effect when passed and approved according to law.
All provisions of law relative to procedure have been complied with. The question is, shall LB 14E pass with the emergency clause attached? Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted carried to? Record, please.
Voting aye. So Aguilar, Albright, Arch, Blood, Bostar, Boston, Brandt, Brewer, Breesy, John Kavanaugh, Clements, Day, DeBoer, Dorn, Erdman, Friesen, Geis, Greger, Groney, Holleran, Van Hansen, Hilders, Hickelman, Hughes, Hunt, Lathrop, Lindstrom, Linehan, Lowe, McAllister, McDonald, McKinney, Morfeld, Moser, Merman, Pauls, Sanders, Slama, Stinner, Vargas, Walls, Wayne, Williams, Wishart. Voting nay, none. Not voting, there's Michaela Kavanaugh and Matt Hansen. Not voting, there's Flood, Coulterman, Pansy, Brooks. 44 A's, no nays, 2 present, not voting, 3 excused, not voting.
LB 14E passes while the legislature is in session and capable of transacting business. I propose to sign and do hereby sign Legislative Bill 14E. Mr. Clerk. Items to record, please.
Mr. President, first of all, bills read on final reading this morning, with the exception of LB 14, have been presented to the governor. Pursuant to that, communication from the governor addressed to the clerk and gross legislative bills 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 were received in my office on September 3. These bills and their accompanying maps were signed and delivered to Secretary of State on September 30. Sincerely, Pete Ricketts, Governor. I have an explanation of vote from Senator Flood. That's all that I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Speaker Hilgers, you're recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, this is the suspension motion.
Did you read in the motion?
Mr. President, Senator Hilgers would move to suspend Rule 4, Section 6, so as to permit the legislature consider LR1.
Speaker Hilgers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I think you just heard, I think maybe the most important news of the day, which is the governor has returned back all 6 of the redistricting maps with his signature. Those now become law, which means, among other things, that we will be adjourning sine die here very shortly here yet this morning. This motion is one, we're going to end what has been a very difficult and I think unprecedented set of circumstances over the last several weeks. We're going to end this special session on a couple notes of thanks and gratitude, and this is the first one of those. So this is a motion to suspend the rule, and the particular rule that this motion is suspending is the rule that requires a layover day for the introduction of a resolution. Senator Linehan is bringing a resolution, which is LR1, which is, I think, doing something that we all should be behind, which is recognizing the incredible work of a number of individuals to make sure that we got to this point here today in advance of the deadline that we had from our election officials. Those people are, and I'm not going to steal all of Senator Linehan's thunder, but I think it's important that they get a number of explicit mentions as we can give them. First and foremost is LRO, all the individuals under the direction of Director Thompson, Tim Erickson, Lamont, the entire team worked tirelessly over the weekends, late at night, over holidays, to be able to get us to this point. I can't tell you, I've tried to tell you before, but I think it's very difficult to use words to explain how difficult and complex just the work of making this operational, just mechanizing the work that we're trying to do on the floor when it comes to the maps and the software and making sure everything is done correctly. Those individuals worked overtime. And I want to specifically also mention, and this is in the resolution itself, 3 other individuals, other staff members who are not LRO, who, when they signed up for their tour of duty here at the legislature, were not anticipating maybe that they would be so heavily involved in the legislative process. But those three people are Trevor in Senator Wayne's office, who I think spent almost more time in the map room helping us out than maybe even Tim Erickson and LRO did. He also worked overtime. Grant Latimer, who is the clerk of the Revenue Committee, was also conscripted as the clerk of the Redistricting Committee. He also worked overtime. And then Bo Ballard in my office, who is my research analyst, who also was conscripted to do all sorts of additional details to help get this process across the finish line. And so we're going to have this resolution. I hope everyone votes for the motion to suspend so we can hear from Senator Linehan as we introduce this resolution. But before we go to that vote, if you wouldn't mind helping me give a round of applause to our great team. With that, I would ask for your green light on this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the question before you is to suspend the rules so we can take up LR1. Those in favor of the rule suspension, vote aye. Those opposed, vote nay. 30 votes required. Record, please.
44 ayes, no nays on the suspension of the rule to permit consideration of LR1.
The rule suspension has been approved. Proceeding to LR1.
Mr. President, Legislative Resolution 1 is a resolution offered by the members of the Redistricting Committee. As noted by the Speaker, it thanks and commends various legislative staff, including the Legislative Research Office, for their work with respect to redistricting.
Right. Senator Linehan recognized to open on LR1.
Good morning, Nebraska, Mr. President, all my colleagues. Thank you all. It's been a hard month for everyone. I do really want to give a shout out to the legislative staff, Director Ben Thompson, Tim Erickson, Lamont Rainey, Alice Hubert, Dylan Cornett, Mark Marsh, Jeff Fryman. I want to stop here for a minute. I don't know if Jeff's here this morning. No, of course, Jeff's not here because he's getting ready to go to Texas with my son to the border. I also want to give a special shout out to Grant Latimer, who is Revenue Committee Clerk and now is the Redistricting Committee Clerk, and I don't think he got any extra pay, but he's learned a lot, so it'll serve him well. Trevor Fitzgerald, who's legal counsel to the vice chair, was instrumental in getting this done, and Bo Ballard, it was at the beck and call of the speaker, not only Monday through Friday, but Saturday through Sunday, and from early morning till late night. And this resolution actually was Senator Wayne's idea, but I've learned a long time ago to steal every idea I can from Senator Wayne. So I'm sure he wants to speak to this too. Before I turn things over to Senator Wayne, I also want to thank the committee. They have, your colleagues, the members of the committee, have worked every day since Labor Day, before Labor Day actually, and long days, 3 hearings across the state. I don't think I could have asked for a better group of people. John Lowe, who served as our ambassador to the Conservatives. I was always like, are you telling them? Are you talking to them? Susan Geis, whose strength can be underestimated because of her civility. Senator Moorfeld, who worked tirelessly to defend progressives. Senator Tom Breezy and Senator Tom Brewer, who held rural interests front and center, even as their own districts were changed dramatically. Senator Steve Lathrop for constantly defending Douglas County and the legislative seats therein. Carol Blood, who served as our constant reminder that transparency was our friend and critical at every step. and reminded us of who said what and when. And finally, to Senator Wayne for defending progressives' priorities without offending conservatives. I'm constantly reminded of how capable Senator Wayne is. His abilities serve us all well. In addition to his intellect and rhetorical skills, and I mean this most sincerely, his sense of humor was what kept the glue that kept us all together. I also want to thank the speaker who focused us and kept us on track. He stepped in when we needed him, and just as importantly, he stepped back when we didn't. That is a true habit of a leader. Again, finally, I want to thank you all. Everyone had to give in an incredibly tight framework. You all deserve a pat on the back, and I appreciate all your help. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Linehan. Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the reason we had to suspend the rules is because I forced Trevor to stay home yesterday, so we couldn't get the resolution in time to get it done. So I appreciate the suspension of rules. This process started with me saying, Trevor, just go draw some maps and we'll figure it out from there. And since then, he was in the map room every day. I think he has maps on every computer down there, multiple ones. And just the collaboration between Grant, Bo, and Trevor sitting down there working on maps, allowing us to go back and continue to have conversations without worrying about how the maps were going to turn out was a huge, huge, huge time saver for us and lifesaver. I just want to talk a little bit. I know people weren't necessarily happy with the process, but I do want to put this in perspective. This has been the most transparent redistricting process ever in Nebraska. 10 years ago, every single meeting was done in exec session. Thanks to Senator Blood, who kept bringing up transparency, we voted not to go into executive after, I think, the second or third meeting. And we were open every single time after that. Yes, it took a while to get data, but every time the maps were done, they were put on the website for the public to see. That's never been done before in the history of this body, and the internet was around 10 years ago. So it wasn't necessarily the most drawn out and get everybody's input, but we did. We went back and changed Grand Island 3 or 4 times because Hall County election commissions would say, hey, what about this neighborhood? We almost split this. We got a precinct over here that isn't big enough. And it wasn't just Hall County. We did that almost every day for the last 14 days across this state. So I just want to put in perspective that last night, or 2 days ago, when I said we should do a resolution, we caught up there. We didn't realize the speaker said we couldn't do a resolution, so that's what started this whole process. But I really wanted this to be a resolution to say redistricting committee holiday in an unofficial way, because it'll never happen again at this time of year. And so LRO and staff could be enshrined forever of having their own holiday, but staff rejected that. They didn't want the attention, mainly because they didn't want to get a subpoena if we get sued. So I just want to put that in perspective, that this was a very frustrating process. It was a process, but we got to a good result. And for the record, because I know I'm going to get asked, I was doing discovery during the first map that was due yesterday, and Patrick didn't see me and I didn't yell, but the lieutenant governor saw me, but that's okay. I actually missed my vote. I did not vote because of some objection. I just was doing my real job and forgot to vote. So I want to thank everybody. This was fun. My office will again be closed tomorrow due to overtime hours that were done and incurred previous 2 weeks. So thank everybody for being here. Thank everybody for putting in the time, but I really want to spend a special thanks to the staff, LRO, Grant, and Trevor, for spending countless of hours to midnight many times on salary without extra pay missing their families and their loved ones, so we can get this done. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Wayne. Senator Lynn, did you care to close? She waives closed and question with the body's adoption of legislative resolution number 1. Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted, carried? Record, please.
44 ayes, no nays on the adoption of LR1.
LR1 is adopted. Mr. Clark.
One item, Mr. President. Bill LR14 was presented to the governor 1137. Communication from the governor engrossed legislative bill 14 was received in my office on September 30. The bill was signed, delivered to Secretary of State. Sincerely, Pete Ricketts, Governor. That's all that I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess a second note of gratitude is that we will complete all of our work, including LB 14, before October 1st, the deadline that was given to us. But the last note of gratitude, I think, is one that, frankly, colleagues, is a little bittersweet. And that is, and I want you to join me in this in a second, please, but I know everyone knows and loves our head sergeant at arms, Mr. Doncheski, who is back there. I had the great honor of introducing, as my last act as exec board chair, I actually made the motion, you may recall, to formally adopt the approval as Mr. Doncheski being our sergeant of arms. But I also now have, it's not a dishonor, but it certainly is sad to be able to now say that today is Mr. Doncheski's, Doug's, last day here with the legislature. He is retiring, I understand, because this job conflicts with his golf game in the spring, which I can completely understand. Of course, he loves all of us. Mr. Doncheski, after having 30 years of the State Patrol, he joined us as Assistant Sergeant in 2019 and then was named the Head Sergeant in 2020. And on a personal note, there is all of our Redcoats or our friends we've gotten to know, created those friendships with all the Redcoats, but Doug has been solid, professional, friendly, just a great friend for all of us. I know, just really a rock in the back over the last 2 years, watching this large family of 49 try to get work done on behalf of the state of Nebraska. So please join me in giving a big, big thank you to Doug and all his work for the state and for us the last 2 years.
Senator Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal for the 13th day as prepared by the clerk of the legislature be approved.
As you heard the motion, those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is approved. Speaker Hilgers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the 107th Legislature, first special session of the Nebraska Legislature, having finished all business before it, now at 11:48 on September 30th, adjourn, sine die.
As you heard the motion, those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned, sine die.